On his briefing before the UN Security Council, the United Nations Special Envoy says despite recorded violations, the truce can lead to peaceful solution in the country. Houthi militia continues to violate the UN brokered truce in different fronts throughout Yemen. The United States announces it has set up a new Navy task force to target arms smuggling in Yemen. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rana Swaylam. The United Nations Security Council has just met to discuss the situation in the Middle East and Yemen. During the meeting, Special Envoy told the Security Council that despite recorded violations of the truce in Ma'rib and elsewhere, the coming weeks will be the real test for the conflict parties in terms of respecting the truce. He also reminded the parties that the main principle of the truce is that the break it offers should be used to make progress towards ending the war. Grunberg added that fuel ships started entering Hodeidah port and Sana'a airport will open for commercial flights soon. Such things would ease a lot of the suffering of the people in Yemen. The UN Special Envoy concluded a 3-day visit to Sana'a yesterday, where he met with Houthi officials and urged all parties to respect the truce. The following report has more details.
The UN envoy to Yemen urged for serious engagement on Wednesday to maintain the country's ceasefire, which has provided a rare reprieve from conflict. The 2-month ceasefire has been in place for 11 days. The UN announced truce, which is endorsed by both parties, is the first time the two sides have officially agreed on such an initiative since 2018. At the conclusion of his first visit to the Houthi-controlled capital, where he met with rebel commanders, Hans Grunberg warned that the truce is barely holding, and we need to be mindful of the challenges. Parties to the conflict need to be committed to keeping peace. The UN envoy Hans Grunberg has said that the sustainability of this initiative will be determined by the warring parties' dedication to fulfilling the truce agreement and the humanitarian measures that accompany it. The renewed truce comes 7 years after the coalition launched its military intervention in Yemen, following the Iran-backed Houthis' takeover of large swaths of the nation, including Sana'a. According to Grunberg, oil tankers have begun to arrive in the port of Hodeidah, which is one of the stipulations of the truce designed to alleviate the fuel crisis in Sana'a and elsewhere. Intense work is ongoing for Sana'a's airport's first commercial flight in 6 years, according to Grunberg, and negotiations have begun to restore critical roadways in Taiz and other governorates. Despite reported violations that are cause for concern, Yemen has seen a significant overall reduction in hostilities and no confirmed reports of airstrikes or cross-border attacks. In another encouraging indication, last week Yemen's president delegated authority to a new leadership council charged with negotiating peace with the rebels. The war is estimated to have killed over 150,000 people and displaced millions, resulting in what the UN considers to be the world's biggest humanitarian crisis.
The U.S. State Department welcomed the formation of the Presidential Leadership Council in Yemen. They mentioned their hopes in addressing the urgent needs of the Yemeni people. They also urged the Council to cooperate fully with comprehensive United Nations-led peace efforts. This came after a statement release issued by the UN, which included future responsibilities for the Presidential Leadership Council. Chargé d'Affaires of U.S. Embassy to Yemen met with Presidential Leadership Council President. She welcomed the Council's commitment to the UN brokered truce and to realizing the aspirations of all Yemenis for peace and prosperity. They further discussed Yemenis' common desire for improved governance, security, and economic stability. Kuwaiti Foreign Minister met the U.S. Special Envoy for Yemen. During the meeting, Sheikh Ahmed Al Nasser affirmed that the state of Kuwait would back up all efforts to continue the ceasefire in Yemen and to prepare the country for a comprehensive peace process. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince received a phone call from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Guterres expressed his gratitude for the kingdom's efforts in achieving a truce between warring parties in Yemen. The UN chief also praised Saudi Arabia's efforts to reach a political solution to the war in Yemen that has been raging since 2014. 9 organizations called for international pressure on Houthi militia to hand over the maps of planted mines. The organizations said they took advantage of the envoy's visit to Sana'a, and they reminded him of the mines disaster, and considered the Houthis' handing over of the maps as the main gateway to any planned peace process in Yemen. Houthi militia targeted citizen homes with a ballistic missile in Harib. According to local sources, a ballistic missile fired by the militia fell on the village of Al-Hajar in the isolation of Mu'alla west of Harib. This came hours after the Houthi militia targeted residential area in Ma'rib with 2 ballistic missiles. Houthi militia continues to violate the UN-brokered truce daily. More than 1,230 violations have been recorded in different fronts. The following report has more details.
The UN-brokered truce came as good news for all the citizens in Yemen, hoping to find some peace, stability and security in their country during the holy month of Ramadan. However, the Iran-backed Houthi militia has committed 1,230 violations of the 2-month nationwide truce in Yemen that was declared by the United Nations earlier this month. UN envoy Hans Grunberg was in Sana'a for talks with Houthi officials in an attempt to consolidate the truce and persuade them to join peace consultations. This marks the first time he visits the Houthi-held Yemeni capital since his appointment in September. The militia had refused to meet with him before the lifting of restrictions on fuel ships and reopening of Sana'a International Airport. Houthi media reported that Grunberg kicked off his visit by meeting with the foreign minister of the militia's illegitimate government, Hisham Sharaf, and the Houthi official in charge of the prisoner file, Abdul Qadir Murtada. Even as the envoy attempted to persuade the militia to join peace talks, he was met with their same demands over the reopening of Sana'a Airport, lifting all curbs on Hodeidah port and the payment of salaries in Houthi-held regions. The legitimate government believes these demands, if they are fulfilled, will help the Houthis prolong the war and smuggle Iranian weapons. Meanwhile, Yemeni military spokesman Abdu Majalli revealed that the Houthis have committed 1,230 violations of the truce since its announcement. Speaking at a press briefing on field developments, he said the militias have committed the violations on all battlefronts in Ma'rib, Taiz, Hajjah, Dala' and Sa'da provinces. He stressed that the National Army was fully committed to the UN ceasefire and orders for the military and political leaderships, while the Houthis continue their escalations and breaches. The violations ranged from the amassing of forces, artillery attacks on the military, the deployment of snipers, and the flying of armed drone attacks. Majalli accused the Houthis of bringing in more reinforcements to battlefronts in southern Ma'rib. He revealed that they have already sent over 40 military vehicles. The Houthis also fired a ballistic missile in the province that left material damage on civilian property. In Taiz, the military confirmed 342 violations, including the firing of mortar and artillery shells on residential areas adjacent to army bases, the deployment of snipers, and bringing in more reinforcements. Majalli added that the army returned fire against the Houthis when it came under attack. Elsewhere, the Houthis committed 305 truce violations in Hajjah, 156 in Hodeidah, 100 in Al-Jawf, 61 in Al-Dala, and 40 in Sa'da. Looks like the Houthis are not willing to end this war any soon, since the UN-brokered truce didn't stop them from committing violations against Yemenis. What else will do?
The United States has announced the setup of a new Navy task force to combat arms smuggling in the Red Sea. Such announcement indicates the threat that the Houthi militia poses for Yemen and the entire region. The following report has more details.
The U.S. Navy announced that it would form a new multinational task force to combat arms smuggling in Yemeni waterways, the latest American military reaction to Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Following the missile and drone strikes on the Gulf countries, Washington has sought to reassure Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which perceived the U.S. commitment to the area as fading. Fifth Fleet commanders said that the task force would ensure a force presence and deterred posture in the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb, and Gulf of Aden. He added that these are strategically important waters that warrant attention, adding that the trafficking of people and drugs would also be targeted. Yemen is strategically located around a key passageway for global trade, including oil supplies and vessels, which has been a target by Houthis. Following the Houthi strikes, the U.S. provided Saudi Arabia and the UAE with extra air defense help this year. The Gulf states remain convinced that the U.S. commitment to the region is overriding. The task force's formation coincides with the 2-month ceasefire in Yemen's almost 7-year war, which has killed tens of thousands of people and displaced millions more. The new naval task force would consist of 2 and 8 vessels and is part of the 34-nation combined maritime forces. In addition, there are already 3 other task forces in nearby waters targeting smuggling and piracy. The international waters between Somalia, Djibouti, and Yemen are well-known smuggling paths for weapons destined for Houthis. In addition, Iran has long been accused of supplying the Houthis with weapons. Finally, the launch of the task force comes amid a UN-brokered 2-month truce in the nearly 7-year Yemen war.
Coming next. In Lahj, Governorate youth initiatives to provide meals for needy people extend in the city during Ramadan.
رمضان قبل الحرب كان الحمد لله، ورمضان الحالي من الحرب وما طلع واحنا بالتعس والآلاء والمتاعب.
فرق كبير، فرق بالأسعار، فرق بالحالة النفسية بين الأسر، الفرق بين الأشياء التي كانت نحن نقدر نستطيع نشتريها الآن.
هي الوجبة المفضلة كانت الشفوف، لكن لو قلت إن ما زالت موجودة لا.
الوجبات هذه معافش وجبات عين رسمية، المواطن الآن معاه يتحمس وجبة رسمية، اللي هله يستخدموه، الأكل أي أكل يأكلوه.
عاد من الشهر السابق كنت أقدر يعني أشتري قطمة 10 كيلو 5 كيلو، أما من دحين الأسعار ارتفعت يعني ما أقدرش أشتري، يا الله أشتري نص كيلو.
الأسعار فوارق، يعني كأنه تدريجيا حق 10 سنوات، حق 10 سنوات فحصله بشهرين، يعني فوارق خيالية.
السنة الغذائية تفرق كل شيء، تفرق همنا، تفرق كل حاجة علينا، نستفيد منه كل شيء.
Welcome back. In Lahj, youth initiatives extend throughout the city to provide iftar meals for needy people and passers-by. Such initiatives do have a positive social impact on people, especially when most of them live in dire conditions because of the war. The following report has more details.
As soon as the days and nights of the holy month of Ramadan come, youth initiatives are activated to break the fast for travelers and passers-by before the call to prayer and time for iftar arrives at Lahj Governorate, in a move considered by young people as an attempt to enable fasting people to complete their usual fast in this month and get God's reward. During Ramadan, volunteer initiatives are active for a number of youth in Lahj Governorate to break the fast for fasting people on the long lines between cities, and with the self-efforts of the initiative's members to draw joy and smile on the faces of fasting travelers and passers-by before Maghrib prayer.
We've started this initiative 4 years ago. It is considered as a charity project without any support from any organization. It's only us, the youth of Lahj.
Youth initiatives are distributed along the road in the districts of Tuban and Al-Huta. The people in charge of them offer dates, some juices, and fries, and these initiatives find welcoming by many travelers, especially as they know that their arrival time will be late to their homes after the time for iftar passes.
This initiative is repeated every year during the holy month of Ramadan, with the support of some of the youth who introduce their efforts to present something for the fasting people. The process of feeding fasting people on the road gives passersby motivation to break their fasting, which gives back the reward to these youth from God.
Young people have been accustomed to implementing their initiatives for quite some years, and despite the different economic state between the past and the present, they continue in their humanitarian and social duty by distributing iftar to passers-by, who deduct it from what was prepared in their homes, and without obtaining it from an institution or any supportive body, which raises the value of the youth initiative's efforts and its positive impact on the Yemeni society.
IOM provided shelter rehabilitation kits to 660 families in South Taiz. These shelters were provided with support from King Salman Relief Organization to upgrade their old, often substandard shelters for more secure and dignified housing. IOM stated that shelter is among the most pressing needs of displaced families in Yemen. Youth Leadership Development Foundation provided assistance to 150 fishermen. With the support of Japan government organization, 150 fishermen from Hadramaut who have been severely affected by the war received 50 boats. The foundation further stated that instead of teaching a fisherman how to hunt, they should provide him with fishing tools. The war has cast a shadow on all aspects of life in Yemen. Fishermen have been faced with enormous challenges in terms of doing their jobs because of the ongoing war. Some of them have even been killed during airstrikes while they were on sea making a living. The following report has more details.
The Yemeni fishermen are risking everything they have just to be able to feed their families. Catching fish for a living in Yemen isn't only about jumping into a boat and throwing a net into the sea. You need to also say goodbye to your family and prepare them for the fact that they might never see you again. What was once a fairly routine occupation has become a matter of life and death since war started in 2014. This has little to do with storms or treacherous currents at sea, but rather the fact that after the Houthi militia declared most of Yemen's territorial waters to a conflict zone, fishermen have frequently been fired upon and killed when attempting to work there. According to statistics from Yemen's Fisheries Authority, as of August 2019, at least 334 fishermen had been reported killed or injured since 2015. Others have been arrested and had their boats seized, while some were now detained in Houthi prisons in Yemen. A Yemeni fisherman from the city of Aden called Ahmed Futaih stated that fishermen in Yemen are only allowed to fish in specific areas near to the beach. But when they try to fish in deeper areas where there are a lot of fish, helicopters chase them, the fighters shoot at them and seize their boats. Local reports estimate that of Yemen's 100,000 fishermen, over a third, which is about 37,000, have quit since the war began and lost their income. This is one of the world's poorest countries, where the war has resulted in tens of thousands of people living in famine-like conditions, and which has been declared by the United Nations as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Desperate to continue earning a living and feeding their family, many fishermen decided not to continue in this dangerous job and they went to look for an alternative, where they can be safe from the coalition bullets. However, others don't have any other profession to help them provide for their family members. Hundreds of fishermen have been killed or injured at sea since the war began. Those left are forced to sail further and risk even more.
British ambassador to Yemen announced the launch of Yemen Economy Tracking Initiative. He further clarified that this initiative is a platform for political economic analysis. YETI provides a greater overall and comparative understanding of the current political economic situation to support the Yemeni crisis. This project is supposed to support humanitarian response in Yemen. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. On his briefing before the UN Security Council, the United Nations Special Envoy says despite recorded violations, the truce can lead to peaceful solution in the country. Houthi militia continues to violate the UN brokered truce in different fronts throughout Yemen. The United States announces it has set up a new Navy task force to target arms smuggling in Yemen. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.